One of the major reasons I got involved was linked very much to the launch event. So the launch event was an immensely powerful experience.
Let's put it out there. We had together a great launch. We had an enormous take-up of some extraordinarily wonderful people who came to support us and be there.
The event that took place in Lancaster Town Hall, and when Daniel made me cry, it was so moving, and it just reminded you that at the end of every single thing we do is a person.
I would like to ask you to bear in mind that most people you're about to hear from today have never done anything like this before. It's taken a great deal of courage for people to get up here today and share with you some extremely difficult and painful aspects of their lives.
The Benefit Office tried to help me. They could only do so much and were under pressure to get results, people back to work or in work, regardless of their problems. All I was a statistic.
If I had one thing to say to the government, it would be treat me as you want to be treated. See me as a person, not a number. See me as living. I am flesh and blood.
This is for our daughters, so they can be whatever they want without having to suffer discrimination or abuse. So that they can expect to get the same help from the police as everyone else in society. So that they'll be treated with respect by the social services. And so that they have the chance to tick the Gypsy, Roma and Traveller box, and they will tick that box with pride.
Poverty can happen to anyone, in any position, in any background, at any time.
It was hard seeing I couldn't help my own mother as we were faced with imminent eviction and homelessness. Going to school every day, having laid awake at night worrying about what the next day would throw at us, was exhausting. Putting on a happy face and trying to take in information was near to impossible, and there were times where I caved under this pressure.
Without this support, there is no doubt I would have not have managed any of my housing benefit application forms, job centre forms and doctor's appointments, and I'm pretty sure I would not be stood here now.
I swear to you, I've done everything possible. Here are my forms. There's nobody at the door. There's nobody here. Nobody can see me. Nobody can hear me. What's the point?
They, you, the people with power, have lost a sense of being connected to everyone. There is always a choice to make. We're all human. We're all here together. We should listen to each other.
Let's create a new, sustainable abundance cycle together where everyone's unique gifts benefit all of society.
Poverty is one of the most significant effects on people's health, and it actually does an awful lot of damage to people's quality of life and even how long they live. You can understand that from a professional perspective or a theoretical perspective. When you become part of the commission, you begin to understand it from a personal perspective. That's very different.
I was really focused on business and contracts and performance and getting everything done. And what Ali did was make me think differently slightly on that day. Thank you, Ali. In terms of what we're doing this for.
And then when we started going to the groups and started talking about everything and started bringing it all together, I started getting that sense of belonging. And then I started realising that it brought me, I actually had a voice for those that were in estates and those that really are not heard a lot. And I thought that if I can speak for them, then maybe they can be heard in future.
It's afforded me a sense of community, and it affords me a sense that I'm giving something back despite my own restrictions. And it allows me to ask questions of people that I might not necessarily have been able to ask of, and that I might have had to spend a long time on the phone finding out something about, and it allows me to ask a question.
And what I've noticed during the last 2 years journeying with folk in the Commission is that those people have grown in confidence, have grown in self-belief.
At the end of every single thing we do is a person. It's somebody who needs help. But not only is it somebody who needs help, it's somebody with great value who can contribute so much.
The first meetings that we had with the community commissioners and with the civic commissioners, it was kind of rowdy. It was a bit different. It was like it was two sides. It was if it was two sides. But then the longer it went on, you've seen a beautiful thing happening where they came together as one.
At the end of the meeting, I was stood outside and was saying goodbye to Dusty, and I just said, I'm really nervous and really worried about being on this Poverty Truth Commission, because I'm just one small cog in a massive wheel at the council, and I just don't know whether I'm going to be able to make any difference whatsoever. But you know, within a few more months, I kind of look back now and think that was so incredibly important, and I'll probably talk about that a bit later when we come to words of wisdom.
As we started off, we was a little bit. We wasn't too sure if people really was going to listen to us. Just a bit wary of professional people. But since Poverty Truth and Patrice and all the other people that we've ended up meeting and Imogen, well, it kind of changes your outlook on people.
We were fortunate to have somebody from United Utilities who didn't really want to be there. He had an absolutely massive turnaround after our first couple of meetings, and has been a great ambassador.
So being part of this event felt like a real breakthrough, and it set an example to everybody what you can do if you work together.
I've got friendships with people now who I would never normally have built friendships with, and it's life-changing. People who are different to us change us.
It touches your heart. It changes you. It completely does.
The fact that we were able to work with the council so effectively and so quickly was because we've got a couple of commissioners that are actually from the council. So they had a greater understanding. We got to know each other really well, and we had turned around the food bank working within 48 hours. And that's moving from one venue to another, setting up an emergency phone number and getting everything set up. And that was only possible, and I'm absolutely convinced, because of the strength in our relationships and the trust in each other, and just knowing that we were all in good hands.
What would have happened if the pandemic had happened, say, 3 years ago? Our community would look very different today, because we had not got those relationships, those conversations, and primarily the trust that has been built through these events, through the conversation, through the networking. We've built so much trust. And for me, that's at the heart of how our community has responded to the pandemic.
Several members of on the community commissioner's side got invited to the head office down at Warrington. So we went and had a very fruitful conversation with them about, you know, that they weren't really doing anything until people ended up in debt, and that they could be doing a lot more to prevent people ending up in debt. And one of the things that they launched after that meeting was a 2-month deferment payment period for anybody applying for universal credit. And since then, they've done a lot of work with community groups about preventing debt, and have brought in a number of schemes, which, when you consider the amount of customers United Utilities have, which is 8 million, has been absolute massive success story for the whole of the Morecambe Bay PTC.
We were at a point in the commission where we were just identifying what themes we were going to work in and what subgroups we were going to have. And suddenly this bolt came that, Marie, our friends, Marie and Christy, we got to know each other by then really well, were going to facing homelessness along with 80 other people who live at Mellishaw, and about a third of them are kids.
How was the feeling amongst your community?
It was devastating. Well, it was like we were going to be homeless. Yeah. Because if they were going to sell it off to a private buyer, well, usually they put people who is on the sites that they don't want on there, put them off. So we would have been homeless. So it was it was a very big worry.
Yeah.
And like, where would we go? Because it's our culture to live that way. So for us to live any other way, it would be devastating to us.
But that was our home. And
that was our home, and we were there for 10 years.
Yeah. So then for them to decide that it was time for us to go because they wanted to sell it was quite upsetting.
So we just started then thinking, okay, this has to be one of our local themes, and it's not how a commission normally develops. So it became a sort of project that appeared, but it was obvious that it had to be a key goal for our commission.
Once we actually got the commission going, we managed to get the City Council to start considering, would it be the right thing to do for them to take over the site?
Coinciding with actually speaking to Marie and Chrissy and Imogen at the meetings, we started to think, perhaps the City Council could take this on. The right thing to do would be to look after our residents and take this on.
It had to go to the council meeting for City Council to agree, and that was quite a challenge. Marie and Chrissy were there, and it was, it was a very nerve-wracking time.
And Chrissy and Marie were sitting at the back there with a number of other people from the PTC. And I think the wonderful thing was that, as it went towards the vote, they sat there with their hands, holding hands, waiting for the vote. And then, of course, the vote came out and it was passed that we would buy it. And it was just a wonderful moment, when you won't forget. I will never forget that moment.
It was three poverty truth commissioners that really helped that through. So Imogen read a statement, read a report, and Suzanne Lodge and Caroline Jackson spoke about the issue. So I think they really helped form people's opinions.
And they turned it into something marvellous.
Well, they could speak to people that we wouldn't even dream of speaking to. So kind of, in a way, they was really our voices.
They were our voices, yeah.
And there were quite a lot of people in different jobs, all willing to help us. And I think without that, I don't think we would have got the site kept.
No.
It was amazing, and I just felt that it was such a good example of how a commission can bring together people from such different areas of expertise, whether that's lived experience or other, together to work towards one goal. That's, it was just brilliant.
I'd say that we need to reach more of the people who are making the decisions at the moment because they believe they're doing the right thing. We need to reach those people and say, you can't, you know, we need to make decisions. We need to put compassion into the algorithm.
If we were going to change some of the dialogue around health or health and well-being, we had to change our own mindsets about whether we felt we were doing this to people, that we were the experts or in whatever field that we happened to be, and we would know what it was that we needed to do, or whether we were actually prepared to work with communities and ask them to be the experts in their own experience.
The one thing that all the community commissioners had in common was distress around continual form filling and constant interviews and having to go to appointments constantly for all different services, whether it's housing, whether it's DWP, whether it's the NHS, constantly, every time we go to these appointments, having to repeat our story. And there's just no let up for people with long-term health conditions. This will go on for years, this will go on for decades. Our stories are exactly what we're hearing from our friends throughout Britain. We're hearing exactly the same thing. And I've met quite a few people who can no longer apply for aid because they're too traumatized and they rely on other people to support them. That's where it's got to. That is how bad it is, how difficult it is to fill in forms, do assessments on the phone, do assessments in person. It is completely traumatizing.
It's incredibly hard to negotiate the health, mental health, DWP, social care, disjointed system, especially when you're on the ropes, when your mental health's in a bad place, when you've got lots of physical pain and all kinds of other things going on. So one of the ideas which particularly some of the community commissioners came up with was they were wanting someone who could be almost like an advocate or a friend or a representative who, if there was a time that they were really struggling to know what to do or who to talk to or how to express themselves properly, that there would be someone who could be their companion, who would be with them.
I'm interested in Janie or Mary. You know, when you've identified a problem, come up with a solution, and then you hear that actually it's not just an idea that you've had, but actually this is going to become a reality. How does that leave you?
It's really unusual to have people listening and being supportive and understanding and believing and then putting that together with their own experience of what they've noticed and putting it all together and saying, okay, let's do something about it. That's mind-blowing.
A year into the commission, I arranged for some of the community commissioners to come in and talk to members of the staff working on the front line. So we had 3 different meetings. We had people from housing, homelessness, our council housing section, customer services, we had environmental health officers, a whole range of people. And there were probably altogether, there must have been 75, 80 people that the community commissioners spoke to. And every meeting was different, but they were, you know, absolutely fantastic, really encouraging meetings where the community commissioners told their stories, and you could literally hear a pin drop in the room when the staff were listening to those stories. And as a result of that, I mean, I've definitely noticed a change in how people deal with, you know, individuals and communities. They've taken a step back and really thought about, you know, that person in their shoes, and, you know, they've got a deeper understanding now of why some people end up like they are, and that whole judgment side of things has definitely changed.
I think the big thing that happened was that my sense of understanding of people who are homeless just began to increase. And also, as someone said, well, when the people with lived experience talk, then you got to listen to them. Whereas, you know, if it's me, well, so it's really good they've got an authority, which has changed the way we think. And the group, the General Homelessness Group, has people in it from business, from outside the council, from charities, and everybody has changed their views, and they've really come together. And I think that's because they've been inspired.
Alex, you've been a part of that group. I'm interested, for somebody, you know, has that lived experience, what it was like to be a part of that, and what do you think about some of the achievements that you've been able to make through that group?
Through my work with Alcott House in Lancaster, who rehouse complex needs homeless people, and through a lot of research that we did as a Poverty Truth Commission around different homelessness supported housing projects in Lancaster, rehabs and detoxes, we found that one of the massive problems was the revolving door. So one of the finest ways to sort of beat that, and we had the discussion around that, was to just have somebody to befriend these people, take them out for a coffee, and introduce them into society. A society that feels extremely scary when you've lived in that different way all your life. So from that idea, me and Dusty, we got together. We put it out to the homelessness prevention group that Caroline was talking about, and said, "What do you think of this?" And everybody kind of fell in love with it.
It's been a long process and it's been hard work, but to see the fundamental changes in culture that ripple all the way through Morecambe Bay now, I wouldn't even call them ripple effects, I would call them waves, because the Poverty Truth Commission has made waves in the whole area.